Welcome to another deep dive. You know, it's amazing how a truly great novel can work like a lens, right? Letting us unpack these universal things, love, loss, finding yourself even when the setting feels, well, a world away.
Absolutely.
And today, we're doing just that. We're plunging into Mariama Bâ's groundbreaking novel, So Long a Letter.
And this is more than just a novel, really. It's this incredibly intimate, long letter. The narrator, Ramatoulaye, she's a widowed Senegalese schoolteacher, and she's just pouring her heart out to her lifelong friend, Aissatou. The setting is just crucial here. We're talking post-colonial Senegal. It's a nation really wrestling with its deep traditions while also, navigating these powerful, sometimes messy currents of modernity.
A society in flux.
Exactly. And Ramatoullaye's personal story, it mirrors that larger change perfectly.
And what we're trying to uncover today, it's not just the plot points, though they are fascinating. It's the really deep insights this story gives us into women's lives, cultural shifts, and those very personal fights people have within a world changing so fast. We've got excerpts from the novel itself, some critical analyses to help us, and honestly, you might find some of what comes up quite surprising. It's kind of a shortcut to getting informed about a really key work of African literature and themes that, well, speak to everyone. So, okay, our deep dive into Ramatoulaye's world, it really kicks off with this moment that throws all these tensions into sharp relief. Her husband, Modou, suddenly dies.
Yeah.
And she's immediately plunged into traditional Senegalese funeral rites. It sounds like a really vivid, almost overwhelming experience.
Oh, it absolutely is. The novel opens, and Ramatoulaye describes the preparations with such detail, you almost feel like you're there. Women gathering incense, eau de cologne, the cotton wool for washing the body. We hear about the 7 meters of white muslin, which is stark symbolic, Islam's only clothing for the dead. Even Zemzem water, which is revered from Islam's holy places. Modou's wrapped in these rich, dark cloths. And the scale of it. She mentions a seething crowd, a funeral procession stretching for miles, cars, buses, lorries, even mopeds. It's a massive community event. A public display of grief.
And straight away, Ramatoulaye tells us how uncomfortable she is, even irritated. She's sitting there, head covered, feeling the weight of it all, but having her co-wife, Brintu, right there in her house. In accordance with tradition, she says. It's clearly painful.
Yeah, you feel that tension immediately.
There's even a detail about a new winnowing fan, just for collecting alms. It's small, but it sort of highlights that transactional side right from the start.
Yes, and the women's roles are so meticulously laid out. We learn with the sisters-in-law, they do this symbolic act of undoing the widow's hair. It's like a physical sign of breaking ties.
Okay.
And they build this rough and ready tent, pulling a wrappered taut over the widow's heads. They sit under it, while other women throw coins under the cloth, supposedly to ward off evil spirits. It's this mix of religious custom and, well, folk belief. Paints a really complex picture.
And this next bit. This really struck me about the pressures on women. Ramatoulaye calls this time the moment dreaded by every Senegalese woman, a time when she feels she has to sacrifice everything, possessions, personality, dignity to her husband's family. It sounds like this profound, almost ritual surrender.
It is, and the novel connects it directly to social conditioning. It explains, no sister-in-law will touch the head of any wife who has been stingy, unfaithful, or inhospitable.
So they're basically being judged publicly.
Exactly. Their past behavior is assessed through how well they performed this morning, how generous they are. And while Ramatoulaye and Binatu get praised for their patience and gifts, Ramatoulaye notes, with outrage, how Modou's new mother-in-law is gloating.
Gloating.
Yeah, boasting about leveling out their years of marriage. She contrasts Ramatoulaye's 30 years and 5 years of married life and 12 maternities with Bintu's 3 children. It's not just grief. It's this cold calculation of status, even right there in death.
That's quite a stark image. Because while all this public ritual is happening, Ramatoulaye is dealing with something much more personal, isn't she? This devastating betrayal Modou left behind. How does that start to ripple through?
Well, the story then draws this really sharp contrast between the gendered spaces. The men come back silently from the cemetery. Their words from Modou are almost like poetry, friend of the young as of the old, lion-hearted, champion of the oppressed, good brother, good husband, good Muslim. It's this public image of like a perfect man.
Right.
But then you switch to the women's corner, and it's just noise, resonant laughter, loud talk, hand slaps, strident exclamations. They're discussing market stuff, rappers, gossip.
So completely different atmosphere.
Totally different. It tells you so much about the separate spheres men and women occupy maybe even different realities, even when they're sharing grief. For the men, it's about public honor. For the women, it's this mix of communal support, but also just the everyday stuff carrying on.
And the money aspect of the mourning. That sounds particularly unsettling.
Absolutely. There's the Sigil Inegil, this traditional condolence ritual expressing hope for moral recovery.
Right.
It continues with offerings, biscuits, sweets, cola nuts.
Okay.
But this custom takes a weird turn when contributions, which used to be things like food, are now banknotes, openly displayed. The book notes, no one wants to give less than the other. So a supportive gesture becomes this public financial contest. And Ramatole's thought here is really profound. She wonders how many of the dead would have survived if, before organizing these festive funeral ceremonies, the relative or friend had bought the life-saving prescription or paid for hospitalization.
Wow. That's a powerful critique.
It's devastating.
Yeah.
How tradition can sometimes just overshadow real human need, a comment on maybe misplaced priorities.
And the actual financial hit on the widows themselves is immediate, right, and quite severe.
It is. Those takings, the money collected, it's all carefully recorded. But as a debt, they have to repay later, not a gift. And despite all the ceremony, Modou's relatives leave the widows, Ramatolle says, utterly destitute. This outpouring of grief quickly turns into this irritating procession of demands. Old relatives, griots, the traditional praise singers and storytellers, even goldsmiths, they all show up wanting money. It turns this moment of grief into just acute financial stress.
It's such a complex picture. These elaborate public rituals seem to honor the dead, but they also act as ways for the community to, reassert social hierarchies, financial claims, often right at the widow's expense.
Precisely.
That quote you mentioned earlier, the old woman saying, "Lady, death is just as beautiful as life has been." Maybe it's not just acceptance, maybe it's a bit cynical, like acknowledging how death, like life, reinforces these power structures.
That quote really nails the tension, doesn't it? Because as you said, while all this public stuff is happening, Ramatolle is wrestling with Modou's much deeper betrayal.
Yeah, let's get into that. How does this personal trauma affect her?
Well, the absolute core of it, the big reveal, is Modou's shocking decision. He took a second wife.
Right.
And not just anyone. It was Benetturio, a girl the same age as his own daughter, Daba.
Unbelievable.
And this marriage happened totally without her knowledge, which just cements Ramatulle's feeling that women, especially first wives, are treated like second-class citizens or just, objects for men's desires. It's a massive blow to her dignity, her sense of self.
And the financial betrayal deepens during the morass, right? That stripping ceremony.
Yes, exactly. That's when it all comes out. He had no savings, only debts. Clock traders, gold traders, grocers, car payments.
Oh, dear.
But the real shocker, the elegant Siakap villa, this modern government-subsidized place where Benets lived and all the fancy stuff inside, he got it with a bank loan by mortgaging Ramatulle's own inherited family home, Villa Fellain.
No, her family home.
Her family home. The place representing her security, her legacy, gone, or at least heavily leveraged without her knowing.
That's just devastating.
And by not to herself. She's a complex figure. This is where the novel gives you another surprising insight. Modou pulled her out of school, paid her a monthly allowance, just like a salary, Ramatolle notes.
Like a salary?
Yeah, and her mother, this lady mother-in-law, explicitly wanted so much to escape from mediocrity. She pushed Benettu into it, saw it as a way up socially.
Okay.
Benettu is described as a lamb slaughtered on the altar of affluence. And later, she's tormented by this gilded prison her life becomes. This portrayal is so important because it stops you from just seeing polygamy simply. It shows even the wife who seems to win can be a victim of the system too.
Right. Trading freedom and education for money and ending up miserable.
Exactly. It shows how these structures can disempower women on all sides.
And this betrayal hits Ramatolle extra hard because it echoes what happened to her best friend, Ayestou, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Aisatou's story runs parallel. She famously divorced her husband, Mado, after he took young Nabuz as a second wife. Naboo was his first cousin, and his mother, Grand Naboo, insisted on it.
And there was a class thing there too, right? Grande Naboo, a princess, looked down on Aissatou because her father was just a goldsmith.
Spot on. It wasn't just the polygamy, it was that class conflict woven in. But Aissatou's reaction is the total opposite of Ramatulle's initial endurance. Ramatolle admires her surprising courage to take your life into your own hands.
So what did Aissatou do?
She left. Rented a house, went back to school School of Interpreters in France, and eventually lands this great job at the Senegalese embassy in the U.S., becomes totally financially independent.
Wow.
She even buys Ramatoulaye a car, a Fiat 125. Aïssatoui represents this different path, a more radical break with tradition built on self-sufficiency.
But Ramatoulaye, she's really torn, isn't she, about her own situation?
Intensely so. She has this line, "If Modou was milk, it was I who had had all the cream. The rest, well, nothing but water," acknowledging all she invested emotionally. She thinks about leaving, definitely. But then she considers her 12 children, the sheer energy it would take to start over at her age. And she looks at other abandoned women in her society, sees their struggles.
It's a huge risk.
A huge risk. She even looks at her aging body in the mirror, contrasting it with Badaitou's youth.
Yeah.
It's this painful moment of vulnerability, acknowledging her perceived loss of value in that context.
And this kind of pain isn't just hers alone, the novel suggests.
No, Bali weaves in Jacqueline's story. She's Ivorian, Protestant. Her husband, Samba Dayak, is openly unfaithful, and it leads her to a complete nervous breakdown.
Oh, wow.
It powerfully shows how these pains have their roots in moral torment. Jacqueline tries both Western medicine and traditional healers, which highlights this search for healing across different cultures in a society grappling with these deep marital issues. It underlines that these aren't just isolated incidents. They're systemic problems affecting women from different backgrounds.
So Ramatoulaye chooses to stay, at least initially, but it's not passive acceptance, is it? It feels more like a deliberate act of redefining her own life within those constraints. What does she do?
Yeah, passive is definitely not the right word. What's compelling is how conscious these changes are. It's not just coping, it's actively taking back control. She starts managing the household finances, paying bills, dealing with repairs, stuff men usually did.
Okay.
This isn't just chores, it's like symbolically stepping into a public sphere women were often kept out of. She even pushes herself to go to the cinema alone, overcoming her shyness. A small thing, maybe, but significant.
A personal freedom.
Exactly. And maybe the biggest symbol she learns to drive. Ironically, inspired by seeing Baitu drive. In a society where getting around often means autonomy, learning to drive is this huge statement of independence. It changes her relationship with space, with freedom. Every small act builds towards self-empowerment.
And you see this generational shift happening too, especially with her daughters. Daba, the eldest, sounds furious about her father.
Oh, absolutely livid. She doesn't hold back. Tells her mother straight up, break with him. Do what Auntie Aïssatou did.
She has very modern ideas about marriage then.
Remarkably so for the time. Daba says, marriage is no chain. It is mutual agreement over a life's program. And she insists the wife can initiate the break, totally flipping traditional power dynamics.
Interesting.
She's also more into women's associations than traditional politics, seeing collaboration as key. Her own marriage to Abdou, where he shares housework, is presented as this ideal couple, a vision for the future.
But Ramatoulaye herself struggles a bit with the younger generation, doesn't she? With the trio.
Right. Arameh, Yassine, and Dianaba. They're smoking, wearing trousers. Ramatoulaye finds herself grappling with this flow of progress. She worries about a lowering of moral standards, thinking back to her own strict upbringing, her grandfather.
It's classic generational tension.
Exactly. She tries to give them sex education, talk about the value of their bodies, self-control. She's trying to bridge that gap, pass on values she believes in, while navigating this new world.
And her pragmatism really comes through when her younger daughter, Aïssatou, gets pregnant, right?
Yes, with Ibrahim Assal. Instead of reacting with just shame or anger, Ramatoulaye's approach is really striking. She focuses immediately on Aïssatou's education, her future.
Practical.
Very practical. She arranges for Aïssatou to keep studying. She meets the young man. It's this blend of traditional concern, for reputation, but also a very modern, pragmatic focus on making sure her daughter still has opportunities. It shows how she's evolving as a mother.
It really highlights this recurring theme. Education as a liberating force, giving women choices, but it also creates these tricky cultural spots for educated Africans, caught between tradition and Western ideas. It's a constant balancing act.
Absolutely. That tension runs right through the novel.
Ramatoulay's journey also involves navigating some intense societal pressures, maybe none more so than when Daouda Dieng proposes. He was an old flame, wasn't he?
He was, her former suitor. And he comes back into her life after her mourning period ends. Daouda is a significant figure, a respected doctor, a deputy in the National Assembly, known for fighting for social justice, having true love for his fellow man.
Sounds like a good catch on paper.
Right. He proposes, Says he still loves her with my head. He specifies wants to care for her and the children. But crucially, he makes it clear he'll remain polygamous. His offer, while maybe well-intentioned, is totally within that traditional structure.
And Ramatoulaye's response is quite something.
It's remarkable. It shows how far she's come. She refuses him decisively, even though her family approves, even though he's a good man.
Why? What does she say?
She puts it so clearly. My heart does not love Dawood Yang. My mind appreciates the man, but heart and mind often disagree. She sees polygamy now not as security, but as bringing constraints, the lies, the injustices.
She knows her own mind.
Completely. She's redefined herself, and she refuses to step back into a system she now sees as inherently unfair.
And this refusal leads to a really interesting political discussion between them.
Yes, a fascinating moment where Ramatoulaye really steps up. She criticizes the ridiculous ratio of women in the assembly, just 4 out of 100 deputies at the time.
Wow, 4.
Yeah. And she argues passionately for women's rights education, equal jobs, political voice. What's interesting is Dawood's reaction. He admits people in the assembly call him a feminist. He even acknowledges women as the nation's primary fundamental root.
So even he sees the issue, to some extent.
It seems so. Their conversation really captures these early stages of women's political awareness in Senegal, the quiet fights for representation happening alongside the bigger post-colonial changes.
But then you have Farmata, the griot woman. She represents the pull of tradition, right?
Absolutely. She's the voice of traditional wisdom, but also societal pressure. She does these gossipy cowries readings, a kind of fortune-telling. And at first, she pushes Ramatoulaye to accept Daouda. Exactly, for security and wealth. Praises him. Rich man, a deputy, a doctor, of your own age group, with just one wife. Meaning Ramatoulaye would be his second, but he only had one before. It's the classic conventional advice.
And when Ramatoulaye refuses, Farmata is not happy.
Not happy is an understatement. Farmata's reaction is furious, almost visceral. She yells at Ramatoulaye, "You have killed a man. You have refused greatness. You shall live in mud. I wish you another Modou to make you shed tears of blood."
Goodness. That's intense.
It really is. It just slams home the immense pressure on women to choose that traditional path, the path of security and status, over personal feelings or principles. Farmata's reaction shows the real social cost of Ramatoulaye's choice. She's marked as different, difficult.
But Ramatoulaye holds firm.
She absolutely does. She rejects Tamsir too, that was Modou's brother, who also proposed according to tradition in Daouda. She earns this reputation in town as a lioness, or maybe even a madwoman, for daring to go against the grain. And she reflects on it all. She talks about the irreversible currents of women's liberation and also the inevitable and necessary complementarity of man and woman. It shows she's thinking deeply, not just reacting. She has this nuanced vision for the future, for herself and maybe for society too.
So we've journeyed through this really intricate story, So Long a Letter. We've explored the raw pain of betrayal, the incredible strength you see in friendship, and this constant struggle for identity in a world caught between old ways and new ones. It's quite a testament to, well, the human spirit's ability to endure and redefine itself.
It really is. And Mariama Bâ, through Ramatoulaye, just keeps reminding us that life's path, especially for women navigating these huge societal changes, is never simple. The novel is rightly celebrated for its feminist critique, but it's so nuanced. It shows the deep complexities, the hard choices women face when trying to change their societies and their own lives. Choices that often come with real, sometimes isolating costs.
Yeah, from those incredibly detailed funeral traditions to the knots of polygamy, from daughters pushing for independence to a mother quietly finding her own strength, this deep dive really shows that questions about tradition, modernity, personal choice, they're rarely black and white, are they?
Not at all. They're deeply tangled, demanding immense courage and a lot of self-reflection.
And Ramatoulaye ends her letter on such a powerful note of hope. She feels new buds springing up in me. She declares, "The word happiness does indeed have meaning. I shall go out in search of it."
It's incredibly powerful. After everything, the loss, the betrayal, it's this statement of enduring optimism. That a future with personal fulfillment isn't just possible, it's something worth actively seeking.
Her story and Aisatou's different path, they really make you think, don't they? How do we balance what we want personally with what society, family, tradition expect from us? And what does real liberation look like today in a world that's still constantly shifting? Especially when challenging those deep-seated beliefs might mean standing alone. What parts of your own life perhaps are you looking at differently after this deep dive into Ramatoulaye's world?